This is your typical young couple, and young Mr. and Mrs. Jones. Same age, same income level, same dreams. They both work hard, love each other, want a good standard of living, and want to enjoy their lives together. One thing that sets them apart is their beliefs about money and their mindset. Our typical young couple save a bit of money and start thinking of ways they could spend that money. Perhaps a nice big house to live in. Young Mr. and Mrs. Jones start thinking how they can use this little money to create a lasting wealth. One day they will have kids, they will need to pay for their education, they will need money to buy that big house that everyone wants, and they'll also need money for their retirement. They will also want to enjoy life while they are still young. The typical young couple does what most young couples do: go to the bank and get a mortgage for their dream house. Young Mr. and Mrs. Jones heard from Jack at Safe Property Invest. They met with Jack and discussed what their current situation was and where they wanted to be in the future. Jack shared his 6-folder strategy and explained a few things that made sense to this couple. Jack also put them in touch with an accountant who knew a thing or two about creating wealth. Our typical young couple is still working hard and start to pay extra payments to their mortgage to pay it off hopefully a little bit quicker. As you know, most of the repayments are eaten up by interest and they end up paying very little off the actual loan. The young Mr. and Mrs. Jones, on the other hand, have invested in a property. They keep living the way they were before, but they are now getting rent paid from their tenants. They are getting tax deductions and they also have a plan in place for when and how they are going to buy their own home. Because our typical young couple has been working very hard, they also need a car. They think of rewarding themselves with a big car. They refinance their house and get a car with it. The investment property has done well over the last 3 years, and using this equity growth and all the money they have saved on tax, Mr. and Mrs. Jones now decide it's time to buy their second property. 5 years have passed. Our typical young couple is still paying off their big mortgage. They have not been able to do much else, because they have been paying every last cent off the loan. They are still working hard. Our typical young couple do not have much else to do. They start to miss out on life. Young Mr. and Mrs. Jones have a portfolio of 2 investment properties. Their tenants have been paying them rent all this time. With tax-effective strategies, they have been able to save a lot of money. And up until now, not much has changed. Now Mr. and Mrs. Jones decide they deserve to buy a house, and that car they had always wanted, using the capital growth of their 2 existing properties. Mr. and Mrs. Jones start living their Australian dream. The story goes on until the end. Your belief about money will either make or break your life. Sow the seeds of wealth now so you may reap the rewards later. Call Safe Property Invest on 02 9615 9726 for your free consultation.